If I asked you to name rock's underrated bass heroes, who would you say? We all know the legends, like John Paul Jones, Geddy Lee, and John Entwistle, but countless others built the backbone of rock while staying in the shadows. Today we'll explore again 10 underrated bassists whose grooves shaped hard rock. Now, the first overlooked giant is someone who changed the very instrument he played. They call him the father of the 12-string bass, and for good reason. Tom Peterson didn't just play in Cheap Trick. He redefined what a bass could do. On tracks like I Want You to Want Me and Dream Police, that chiming, almost orchestral sound underpins the band's mix of power pop hooks and hard rock grit. The 12-string added a fullness that made Cheap Trick's live shows roar, filling arenas with a wall of low-end harmonics that no 4-string could match. Yet while Robin Zander's vocals and Rick Nielsen's guitar antics got the spotlight, Peterson's innovation was often overlooked. Few casual fans realize how radical his instrument was at the time, or how it inspired generations of bassists to push beyond tradition. Without Peterson's invention and steady groove, Cheap Trick's blend of pop melody and hard rock muscle wouldn't have hit nearly as hard. Driving arena rock, we shift to the sweeping soundscapes of progressive rock with a harder edge. Dave Hope of Kansas was never a flashy player, but his steady hands kept one of America's most ambitious bands firmly grounded. With soaring vocals, fiery guitar leads, and elaborate keyboard arrangements, Kansas could have easily slipped into chaos, yet Hope's bass lines tied it all together. On Carry On Wayward Son, his locked-in groove with drummer Phil Ehart laid the foundation beneath those iconic harmonies. On Point of No Return, his playing anchored the song even as strings and synths swirled above. His tone was warm, rounded, and always in service of the arrangement, giving Kansas's complex epics a heartbeat you could feel. While Steve Walsh's vocals and Kerry Livgren's songwriting often drew the spotlight, Hope stood quietly in the background, the unshakable architect of Kansas's power. From America's heartland, we jump to the UK, where one bassist powered rock's biggest names from the shadows. Neil Murray's resume reads like a roll call of hard rock heavyweights: Whitesnake, Black Sabbath, Gary Moore, Brian May. His playing was never about flashy solos or showboating. It was about weight, precision, and groove. On Whitesnake's Ready and Willing and Come and Get It, Murray's bass is the anchor, the steady thump that lets the guitars swagger without losing balance. Later, during Black Sabbath's turbulent mid-'80s era, he brought the same no-nonsense backbone, giving Iommi's riffs a solid foundation. Always in demand, Murray was the bassist other musicians trusted to make a song complete. Yet his name rarely appears on our greatest bassist lists. Overshadowed by singers and guitar heroes, his contribution often slips under the radar. For those who really listen, Neil Murray was quiet strength personified. In my opinion, Greg Ridley gave Humble Pie that raw, muscular groove beneath Steve Marriott's fiery vocals and Peter Frampton's guitar lines. He had a way of making the bass sound heavy without ever being clumsy, a deep, gritty tone that carried as much attitude as the guitars above it. On Natural Born Boogie and Stone Cold Fever, his lines don't just keep time, they drive the whole song with bluesy swagger. Before Humble Pie, Ridley had already cut his teeth in Spooky Tooth, shaping their mix of soul and rock. But even as Humble Pie rose as one of the first true hard rock supergroups, his name rarely made headlines. Marriott's voice and the guitars took center stage, while the foundation stayed in the shadows. That's what makes him so underrated. Without Greg Ridley, Humble Pie wouldn't have had that earth-shaking bottom end that hit you in the chest. When you think of Blue Oyster Cult, you probably picture the riffs of Don't Fear the Reaper or the mystique of Godzilla, but who held that whole machine together? For me, it's Joe Bouchard. His bass lines carried the perfect blend of muscle and melody, always supportive, never dull. On Astronomy and Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll, listen closely. His playing gives the songs a pulse that's both steady and adventurous, shifting with the band's mix of hard rock, prog, and the bizarre. Bouchard wasn't just holding down the low end, he was adding color, sometimes even doubling melodies to make the music richer. In a band of strong personalities, Buck Dharma's guitar, Eric Bloom's theatrics, Joe was often overshadowed. Yet every time I revisit those records, it's his lines that jump out. He was the glue, and the band's sound wouldn't exist the same without him. From mysterious riffs and cult classics, we turn up the volume to pure glam-fueled chaos. Slade were loud, brash, and built for the stage. But behind Noddy Holder's gravelly voice and Dave Hill's flamboyant guitars, Jimmy Lee was quietly shaping their sound. More than a bassist, he wrote or co-wrote many of the band's biggest hits, giving Slade their signature stomp and swagger. On Come On Feel the Noise and Mama We're All Crazy Now, his bass is fat, punchy, and irresistible, the kind of low end that makes a crowd move whether they want to or not. Leah had a gift for keeping it simple yet unforgettable, the kind of playing that sounds easy until you try it yourself. While the spotlight often fell on Holder's voice and the band's wild image, Leah was the engine, the unsung craftsman driving the anthems that defined glam rock. If Slade gave us the glitter, Nazareth gave us grit, and holding down that grit was Pete Agnew. I think Nazareth had one of the most distinctive hard rock sounds of the 70s, built on raw emotion and Dan McCafferty's gravelly voice. But listen closer to tracks like Hair of the Dog or Love Hurts, and you'll hear Agnew's bass doing far more than keeping time. His lines are thick and deliberate, carrying a weight that makes the songs feel like they're moving mountains. Agnew's style was about presence. Steady, unshakable, the kind of bass that makes you nod your head without even realizing it. Yet when people talk about Nazareth, the conversation almost always shifts to vocals or guitar riffs, leaving his crucial role in the shadows. For me, Pete Agnew is the definition of underrated. The rock-solid craftsman who gave Nazareth their muscle without ever demanding the spotlight. From Scotland's grit, we cross to the Netherlands, where one bassist quietly redefined what hard rock could sound like. Rinus Gerritsen was more than just the bassist of Golden Earring, he was their foundation. With his inventive double-neck instrument, part bass and part regular guitar, he expanded the band's sound in ways few players dared. On Radar Love, his relentless groove powers the song's 7-minute ride like a roaring engine. On Twilight Zone, his precise, moody playing gives the track its cinematic tension. For decades, Gerritsen's lines kept Golden Earring among Europe's most respected rock exports. And here's the thing. If guitarist and co-founder George Kooijmans hadn't fallen ill and passed away, the band would likely still be touring today, with Gerritsen thundering away at the core. Yet outside the Netherlands, his name remains absent from greatest bassist lists. To me, Rinus Gerritsen is the definition of underrated, the quiet architect who gave Golden Earring their heartbeat. move on to Tony Butler. His work in Big Country was never about showing off. It was about building landscapes. With Stuart Adamson's soaring guitar lines designed to mimic the sound of bagpipes, Butler's bass had to do more than keep rhythm. It had to ground the whole sonic experiment. On tracks like In a Big Country and Fields of Fire, his lines throb with melodic purpose, adding depth while still driving the songs forward with power. His tone was warm but muscular, a perfect counterbalance to the chiming guitars. Big Country may be remembered most for their anthemic, Celtic-flavored rock, but those songs wouldn't have had the same lift without Butler anchoring them. Overshadowed by Adamson's voice and guitar heroics, Tony Butler remains one of the quietly brilliant bassists of his era. Last but not least, Pete Farndon. Farndon's bass playing was tough, sharp, and perfectly suited to Chrissie Hynde's mix of punk, snarl, and rock melody. On tracks like Precious and Tattooed Love Boys, his lines bite with an urgency that pushes the songs forward, raw but controlled. He wasn't flashy, but he didn't need to be. His presence was felt in the way the music punched through. Beyond his bass lines, Farndon also helped shape the Pretenders' early identity, giving them the aggressive edge that made their debut album such a landmark. Sadly, his story ended too soon, his life cut short at just 30. Because of that, his name often lingers as a tragic footnote rather than the vital musician he was. But listen closely. Pete Farndon's bass was the grit in the Pretenders' fire. These bassists may have stayed in the shadows, but their playing shaped the very soul of rock. Their names might not echo like legends, yet their influence is undeniable. Who do you feel left the biggest mark? Share your answer in the comments. And if there's another forgotten bass hero, I'd love to know.